So this is another piece of furniture that I did back in 2021 and have finally pulled all the raw footage into a somewhat cohesive video. My oldest granddaughter asked me to paint this. Her bedroom is blue and white, and that is what she asked for. It is her piece of furniture. The lady asked for paint, and that is what she's getting. And sorry, I know people feel a certain type of way about painting old furniture, so if that's the case, you better not watch, because some painting is about to happen, folks. So we've got the furniture, we've got the plan. Let's get started. This poor little 4-drawer dresser is one of the most scratched up pieces I have ever seen. It's a nice piece actually. It's mid-century modern in design. There is quite a bit of veneer that has been chipped away. There are both knobs that belong on the top drawer that are still there, but one has been moved to a middle drawer so it can be opened. Only one of the 4 original pulls is still there, so I'll be replacing those. I removed the 2 little knobs and set those aside to be cleaned up and put back on the dresser's top drawer. And the one remaining knob will go into my stash of old hardware waiting for the right piece. It also has some old contact paper inside some of the drawers, but that comes right off. When my granddaughter and I were loading this in the back of my car, I saw this inexplicable note to herself written in permanent ink on a piece of furniture of all things.
Now what were you thinking, huh?
So I say to the girl, I have to ask, why? Why, Gabby? And not just why write it on a piece of furniture, but why do you need a note to know to do your hair in the morning? She told me it was because the dresser was right by her bed, and that way she would see it first thing. Now, in her defense, she was 14 years old at the time. However, she did promise not to write on it once it was refurbished. I vacuum it off, especially the insides, which are always pretty dusty, following by scrubbing it down inside and out with Rust-Oleum spray degreaser and a scrubby pad, and then I rinse it thoroughly. I'll be scuff sanding this before priming and painting, and I don't want to rub any grime into the wood grain. This is a Bassett, so it's a really quality piece, and even though it has been used and abused, still with care, it should last her a really long time. Some of the edge banding was pulling away from the substrate, so I pulled it up with a putty knife, squeezed a little CA glue in there. It had several places where the veneer was chipped away, and so I filled those with Minwax wood filler. The top was just so extremely scratched that I skim coated pretty much the entire thing with wood filler, using my putty knife to spread it and then push it down into all the scratches. The drawers were subjected to the same treatment, and it appeared that she and probably her brother as well had scratched all kind of artwork and words into the finish. Most of it I couldn't make out, but I did find the word mommy on there. With the exception of the very top drawer, I had to fill all the hardware holes because I'll be changing out the pulls and the new ones won't fit. I had some French provincial style pulls in my stash that I let her look through, and she chose those. So I squeezed wood filler into all the holes and set the drawers aside to dry. Next day, I sanded the entire dresser and all the drawers using 120 grit sandpaper to prepare it for paint, and then wipe back all the sanding dust using a damp microfiber cloth. I do want to take just a moment to address something. I am about to prime this piece. As I mentioned earlier, this footage was taken in 2021, and I was very, very new to working with furniture, and it's something that I have grown with in experience and in my viewpoint. I do wish that I had had the foresight to take steps in making this the new piece my granddaughter wanted, but still ensuring that it could be truly restored later on if needed. I did choose not to use Bondo, but to use a different wood filler that I felt could more easily be removed later on than Bondo. However, it never occurred to me to use a different primer than white Kills. It's what I had on hand, what I've always used. But Kills, Zinsser, Dixie Belle, all those companies make clear primers, and this is what I should have used. Somewhere down the road, if someone decides to restore this basset dresser, they will probably be using a dental pick to get white primer out of the grain and cursing my name. But I used Kills, traditional white Kills. So sorry, moving forward. I did one coat of Kills primer over the entire piece. I also primed the sides of the drawers because I'll be adding some decorative tissue paper on the sides, and the paper has a white background, so I don't want the brown wood showing through. The wood filler shrunk back, of course, so after priming, I added some more wood filler to the drawer fronts. I let that dry while I primed the body of the piece. Then the pitfalls of painting furniture outdoors in the summertime in Mississippi comes to call. Immediately after priming the top, being careful to do long, light strokes to get as few brush marks as possible, I see this little guy stuck to the finish. Ugh. I bring out my primed drawers since they are all dry and sand the primer with a 220 sanding sponge until it is smooth and ready for my paint. Then I go to check on the body of the dresser and find yet another little corpse stuck to it.
Well, that's just great.
Using Barkeeper's Friend and a toothbrush, I cleaned the old hardware. It cleaned up pretty nice, but the gold really didn't match the knobs, so I set all the hardware on a large sheet of cardboard and sprayed them with some gold metallic Krylon. I'll come back after it dries and put on a second coat. The owner of this piece, namely my granddaughter, wanted blue, so to match the other blues in her room, I chose this Scuba Blue by Valspar. I was trying to do this flip as economically as possible. I don't want to use the word cheaply, but I was really trying to use supplies I already had. So I bought a paint sample at Lowe's. It was only $7, but I can remember when they were only $4. And I know I can't paint all 4 drawers using this little bitty sample, or can I? I have a plan. I painted the bottom drawer with my paint sample, let it dry, and then I came back, sanded it lightly, wiped it down, and then did my second coat. I had some semi-gloss white paint left over from another project, and I think this will work. I emptied the rest of my sample into a larger container and then added between 1/2 and 3/4 of a cup of the white paint to that and stirred it together. It made a very pretty blue, a shade lighter. I painted this on the next drawer up, and then I repeated the process. Let it dry, come back, sand it, wipe it down, and put on a second coat. While I was waiting for that drawer to dry, I coated the gold hardware with some Minwax spray polyurethane in a clear satin to protect it. My first 2 drawers are done and drying in the sun, so I move on to the next drawer. I added more white paint, stirred it up, and it went on drawer number 3. This dresser looks like a 5 drawer, but it's actually a 4 drawer. The middle drawer is one big drawer, but it has a routed groove on the front, so it looks like 2 drawers. I plan to keep this illusion and treat it like 2 separate drawers, so I taped off the upper half and painted the bottom half with the new paint color. While this was drying, I took the other drawers inside to apply the paper to the sides. I chose this cheerful floral tissue, so when the drawers are open, you see this fun pop of color. I applied it using Mod Podge. I painted the Mod Podge on using a foam brush to just about the first 4 inches or so. Then I affixed my paper using a putty spreader. I use these things for all kinds of projects. I buy mine at Harbor Freight. You can get a whole pack of them for about $8. Then I brayer it down with my little roller. I'm trying to get out any air bubbles. I lift the paper up and apply the glue to the next several inches and repeat the process until the paper is glued to the entire side of the drawer. I use my X-Acto knife to trim back the excess and then lightly sand the edges with a sanding sponge. I apply a second coat of Mod Podge over the paper. Back to painting, I pull the tape off the double drawer and do what I do. Same song, 4th verse. I didn't want to put painter's tape on the other side of the drawer. It was dry but not cured sufficiently, and I didn't want to take a chance on ruining my finish. I started out using a small straight-edged craft brush to paint along the groove separating the drawer, and then finished up just using a regular paintbrush. This entire process with all 4 drawers took me 2 days because I had to wait for each first coat to dry sufficiently for me to sand it before I could apply a second coat. But finally, I'm on the very top drawer, and I love this beautiful pale blue color. Now onto the body of the dresser. I flipped the dresser upside down to take care of the legs and found I missed the underside of the top. It's always good to look at something from multiple angles, a statement true both in furniture and in life. Typically, I would remove the legs to prepare them, but these were screwed into the base so tightly that I decided to scuff, prime, and paint with them still attached to the body of the dresser. So I taped them all off, also taping off the caps on the feet. I scuff sanded them, wiped them off, and primed them with just 1 coat of Kills. Then I sanded that, wiped it off, and then painted it with 2 coats of my white paint. I planned to spray the paint on the body, so I thought this method would be easier for the feet. Once my paint was dry, I removed the tape off the leg caps and touched those up using some antique gold rub and buff and a small artist's brush. I spent so much time sanding my primer to get it smooth, I decided to use my HVLP spray gun to apply my paint. I applied 2 coats of the white paint, sanding lightly in between. Afterwards, I removed all the painter's tape. It looks clean, smooth, and like a brand new piece of furniture. I let that dry in the sun and turned back to the drawers. The big double drawer needs 1 slight touch-up. The routed groove got primed but not painted, so I carefully paint the groove using a small artist's brush. Now I'm really in the home stretch. The wind is really picking up outside, but I clean my spray gun from the white paint and reload it with top coat. I actually have 3 of these guns, ostensibly 1 for primer, 1 for paint, and 1 for top coat, but I really like my purple one I got at Harbor Freight and use that one the most. They're really inexpensive, they're easy to use, and do a great job. I apply 2 coats of Minwax's water-based semi-gloss poly to the entire dresser. The last thing I do is bring the drawers back inside. I treated the drawers using Howard's Feed-In Wax, using a little wax brush. I didn't film it, but I also added the new hardware and put wax on all the drawer glides. Looking back at the original state of this dresser, I'm happy to have been able to do this for my granddaughter. She is a sweet, hardworking young woman, and even now at 19, this dresser is still in her room, and she hasn't even written on it. I know this is not a look that many people would have chosen. There are some serious paint haters out there, and they are not shy about expressing their opinions. Well, here's my opinion. Painting does not negatively impact the usefulness of a piece of furniture. As for me, I'm beyond pleased with how this piece turned out. I love the colorfulness of it, the fun paper on the sides of the drawers. I think it is tasteful and beautiful and was just what a teenage girl wanted, and she was thrilled with it. This dresser belongs to someone I love, and she asked me to paint it, so I did, and she absolutely loved it. So there you go, mission accomplished.